1954 that the official sod turning marked the go-ahead for the power project. The plan was to build 2 major dams and a powerhouse. It would stretch 60 kilometers and cost $750 million. It was quite a feat of engineering. Construction crews had to be able to cross the Cornwall Canal without disturbing shipping traffic. A section of the river was drained and steel tunnels were laid and buried to create an underpass. When the water level was restored, crews and ships could move back and forth freely. Phase 1 of the project was the Long Sault Dam on the southern tip of Barnhart Island. Its job was to divert water to the channel north of the island toward the powerhouse site. This would create a head pond with a sudden, rather than a gradual, 27-meter drop. It's this sudden drop of water that would eventually turn the turbines at the powerhouse and create electricity. But the head pond was enormous. It flooded over 12,000 hectares of farmland, forcing 6,500 people to relocate. Phase 2 of the project was the Iroquois Dam. It was built further upstream to regulate the flow and level of water from Lake Ontario into the St. Lawrence River. Both of these dams were built by using temporary cofferdams made of stones and rocks. Cofferdams hold back the water from construction and divert it through other channels during construction. Finally, the powerhouse, a kilometer-long structure that would double as a dam. It would back up the river and elevate the water level in the head pond even more. The powerhouse would put out 2 million kilowatts of electricity, enough to power 600,000 homes. To build the powerhouse, they had to cofferdam the north channel of Barnhart Island. One of the cofferdams was more than a kilometer long. It was made of 60 interlocking steel sections. On July 1st, 1958, Ontario Hydro blew up all the cofferdams. The head pond formed. 4 days later, electricity.
It was all done in the name of progress. Little towns like Altsville, Dickinson's Landing, Farron's Point. In total, 6 historic Loyalist towns were lost in the flooding. 6,500 people were relocated to modern new towns. But for many of them, bigger wasn't better, and a new house never became a new home. It's been 40 years since the power dam was built and the towns were flooded. We asked 3 of the original residents from those lost villages to take us back to a way of life that now lies silent beneath the waters of the St. Lawrence.
Come down to Cornwall, the Seaway town. There's lots of activity going around, where they're digging big ditches and pulling up ground. Come on, all you people, to the Seaway town.
I lived in the village of Altsville all my life. It was the only home that I knew.
They're tearing up streets and they're moving the roads. There's hydro men working and carrying big loads.
2 words we learned to hate: Ontario Hydro and expropriate.
The thundering old rapids will soon disappear, where many a ship would not dare to go near.
It was very desolate, really. Everything being torn down. So it wasn't exciting by any means.
Progress is not without sacrifice or inconvenience. Creating the head pond flooded out 3,200 hectares along the Canadian shoreline, displacing 6,500 residents of a number of small towns and villages. At Iroquois, it was decided to re-establish the entire village at a new site about 2.5 kilometers to the north. Only part of Morrisburg was affected, so a new subdivision was laid out to take care of the homes and businesses originally located along the natural shoreline. To absorb the smaller communities, 2 new towns were created. Located about 25 kilometers west of Cornwall, the town of Ingleside combined the former villages of Wales, Dickinson's Landing, Farron's Point, and Altsville. The new town of Long Sault absorbed the residents of Mille-Roche and Moulinet.
This sidewalk leads to the historic village of Altsville, one of the prettier villages along the St. Lawrence, like the other 5 that were lost with the coming of the Seaway. Out there was the village. We like to consider that's where one of the places English Ontario started, as were all of the 6 villages lost with the Seaway and hydropower project. These 6 villages were replaced with the ultra-modern towns of Long Sault and Ingleside.
The land that I lived on in Altsville, well, that would have gone back to the 1700s. Both my mother and my father's people had grants of land from United Empire Loyalists. We had a wonderful village, really. I lived beside the water. We had the biggest swimming pool of anybody I know of. We had the whole St. Lawrence River, and in the winter we skated on the river and we swam all summer. We had 3 churches. Now remember, a population of just a little over 300 people, but we had our own doctor, we had our own undertaker, we had our own bake shop, we had a public school, a high school that I went to school, and we went with the same group of children all my life. They were all neighbors, they were all friends. It was there, and we expected it always to be there. It's lost, completely lost.
On July 1st, 1958, the coffer dam was to be blown apart, and the water, according to everything we'd read and heard, was going to come rushing over the land, just almost like a tidal wave. Well, there really wasn't anything to see because they closed the dams, the dam gates. They brought those down, so the river is coming up and can't go anywhere. So the river starts backing up. Slowly, slowly, slowly. It took 4 days for the river to reach what you see today, 242 feet above sea level. Some people were joyous because they didn't like the village that much or the house they were living in. And in their minds, they were going to take a giant step forward.
For many of the people involved, relocation meant a brand new house in a strange new town. But for others, it was their familiar old house with a change of address. Over 500 homes were transported by house-moving machines. Many new houses had to be built too. New shopping centers, schools, churches, and municipal buildings were also built.
Here we are in the new town of Ingleside, one of the 2 towns where some of the 6,500 people were moved after they lost their historic homes in the lost villages. They lost their heritage, they lost their homes, they lost the connection with their culture. And they were given a town with about as much character as an empty donut box, and like this shopping center.
Right here in front of us was the village of Wales. The road through Wales ran from Dickinson's Landing, which is the strip of land you see a mile to the south, or 1.6 kilometers. It ran straight north, past that tree, up the hill, and through what is the present-day St. Lawrence Valley Union Cemetery. 14 small cemeteries from the lost villages and all along the riverfront came to this area.
The cemeteries were capped with heavy, heavy rock. Some of the bodies were moved to the new location, to the new cemetery, St. Lawrence Union Valley. But most of them that were left there, and therefore they're under the water.
The thought was always in my head, what am I swimming over? Am I over a graveyard here? What's going to let loose anytime? And I was never comfortable.
The big wooded island that you see was Deb White's Bush, which was south of the village, and right on this side of it was the CNR double track to Toronto. The small wooded island was the site of St. David's Anglican Church. And in the 50s, the idea was knock it down. But many of us feel now that it would have been such a wonderful thing to leave that church there, gutted, but the structure would have been left as a marker of what was once there, and shown that there was a presence out in that water of many, many people.
My mom's house had to be burned. It could not be relocated. It was too old, it was brick, and they didn't think it would hold together. The fire marshals wanted to do different experiments to see how the fires burned in the home, so they deliberately set these homes on fire and did a survey which apparently resulted in smoke detectors in the homes.
I feel the settlements were unfair for the properties that were involved because it cost them a lot more to build the new home in the new town than what they received from the settlements that they made with Ontario Hydro. They ended up with a mortgage in a lot of cases when they were moved back here. They didn't have a mortgage on the old place. And in many cases, the homes were handed down. So there was never a mortgage to start with. You see, they were all paid for.
Here are 6,000 people. And to someone in today's climate, perhaps we look like 6,000 sheep. The goat led the way and the whole flock followed. But in the 1950s, we hadn't yet gone through the 1960s. Things like group action, demonstrations, protests were not part of our makeup. And it was a time of tremendous upheaval. The catchword of the day was, you can't stand in the way of progress. So we didn't stand in the way of progress. We did as was expected of us. We moved off quietly.
They told us, I remember at a meeting that we met in the new public school that was built in the town, that this would be a second Coney Island from Cornwall right through to Iroquois, because of the tourists coming in to see what was going on and to see the new towns and how this hydro project, the new dam, all these things that were being built at that particular time, they told us was going to be beyond reason. It never materialized.
It bothered my mother. It bothered the older people in the village to think that this would happen, and where would they go and how would they manage. She was very strong. Mm-hmm. And if she saw me talking like this today, she'd say, come on there, girl, buck up. I mean, it's over and done with, and life goes on. And that's all there's to it.
This isn't much of a creek anymore. And like most of the area, it's just more flooded land, which has led many people to ask, was it necessary to flood as much as they did, to lose the villages they did, to destroy as much as they did? Coupled with that, the progress the hydro promised just didn't materialize. The industry, the population, the change never made it this far.
We'll miss old Sheik's Island just like a friend, where we all went on picnics and also a swim. Such beautiful scenery, never no more to see. So I'll give 3 cheers for Sheik's Island like me. The old St. Lawrence will have a new face when the men from the hydro have won their race.